My son Julian has leukemia. We've been waiting 3 years for a bone marrow match. Then the doctor told us they'd finally found a perfect match donor. My husband, Silas Shao, got down on his knees and begged me to give that chance to his first love, Luna Sue. He said Luna was in worse health, that she couldn't wait. I refused. It was Julian's only chance to live. So he stole the surgery money I'd saved for Julian. He said it was just a temporary loan. The hospital called to tell me because the deposit never arrived, the donor had left. I frantically tried to contact the donor, but their assistant sent me a message instead. Ms. Luna Sue's surgery was a complete success. Mr. Shao paid double the fee. I looked at my son's smile from his hospital bed, then calmly dialed the police. The wail of sirens grew closer, until they screeched to a halt outside the hospital. I didn't look out the window. I just reached out, brushing Julian's pale little face over and over. He was asleep. His breathing was as faint as a butterfly that might fly away at any moment. When 2 uniformed police officers walked into the room, I didn't even turn around. "Hello, we received a report, this is." "I'm the one who called." I cut them off. My voice was flat, no ripple of emotion, like stagnant water. I stood up, turned to them, and pointed at the man who'd just burst into the room, his face still etched with shock and a hint of irritation. "My husband, Silas Shao." "It's him," I said. "Silas Shao. He stole 2 million yuan I'd saved for my son's surgery. Money that would have saved his life." Every word fell from my lips like a shard of ice crashing to the floor. Silas's expression froze. He'd probably thought I'd called him to beg the hospital together, to beg the donor. He never could have imagined the police would be waiting for him. "Theolin, have you lost your mind? What are you talking about?" He lunged forward to grab my arm, but the police stopped him. "Mr. Shao, please calm down," one officer said. "Calm down. She's my wife. She's not thinking straight. Theft? We're married, this is marital property." He started spouting nonsense, his handsome face twisted with absurdity and offended rage. I looked at him and suddenly found it all ridiculous. Married? He'd forgotten that word when he knelt to beg me to give Julian's chance to Luna. He'd forgotten it when he stole that money, cutting off Julian's last hope. And now he remembered. "Officer, this is the bank transfer receipt," I said, handing over the documents I'd prepared. "The money came from my premarital account, earmarked for this specific purpose. This is the hospital's payment notice, clearly stating its use. This morning he used my phone to transfer the money to himself." My voice was clear and logical, nothing like a mother who'd just lost her son's chance to live on the brink of collapse. The officers reviewed the evidence. One stepped toward Silas. "Mr. Shao, please come with us to assist with the investigation." The moment the cold handcuffs clicked around his wrists, Silas finally panicked. He stared at me in disbelief, no more anger, just pure confusion and fear. "Theolin, do you really have to go this far? Over money?" I didn't answer. They led him away, but even as he disappeared down the hallway, that accusatory gaze clung to me like a venomous snake. I hadn't lost my mind. I'd just woken up. An hour later I was invited to a mediation room at the police station. Silas's mother, Mrs. Shao, had arrived in a flurry, accompanied by the Shao family's top legal team. She wore a custom Chanel suit, her hair styled to perfection. The second she walked in, an air of arrogant superiority filled the room. "Theolin, have you caused enough trouble?" She didn't even bother to look at me directly, as if I were something beneath her notice. "You've brought shame to the entire Shao family. Haven't you learned that family scandals should stay hidden?" I said nothing. I just huddled in my chair, hugging my knees to my chest, burying my face. My shoulders trembled slightly, playing the part of a fragile, helpless wife, terrified and overwhelmed. It was my first act of pretense. To bring down a big tree, you first have to let it think you're just a harmless vine. The lawyer stepped forward, speaking in a formal, rehearsed tone. "Mrs. Shao, legally speaking, it will be very difficult to charge Mr. Silas with theft. Among married couples, shared use of assets is common. We hope you'll classify this as a family dispute, and sign a letter of understanding. We can have the case dropped immediately." Mrs. Shao waved a hand impatiently. "Why are you wasting time talking to her? Theolin, what do you want?" I slowly lifted my head. My eyes were red and swollen, my voice hoarse and timid. Mom. I don't know. I was just so scared. Julian, Seeing me like this, Mrs. Zhao's guard relaxed a little. She swapped her arrogance for a look of condescending mercy. Enough. I know you're upset. Silas acted foolishly this time. But he did it for a friend, he just made a mistake. I latched onto that detail in her words, playing along. I deliberately only referred to Silas's act of embezzling a large sum for a friend. A friend? I choked out. What friend? Could be more important than Julian's life? That was 2 million yuan. Silas said it was just a temporary loan. But who? Who is this friend? I was luring them in. I knew with Mrs. Zhao's need for control, she'd never allow Silas to make any large expenditures outside her oversight. She'd definitely investigate. She'd find out where the money went. She'd find out that friend was named Luna Su. She'd find out about that successful surgery. The lawyer, seeing me soften, immediately handed over a pen and paper. To Mrs. Zhao, just sign here and we promise this matter ends today. You and Silas can still be a happy family. My hand trembled as I reached for the pen. Just as they all thought I was about to give in, I suddenly looked up at Mrs. Zhao. Mom, if I sign this, will Julian come back to life? The air in the mediation room froze instantly. The fake mercy on Mrs. Zhao's face cracked apart, replaced by a cold, offended glare. Theolin, what are you implying? Using Julian to threaten me? I shook my head, tears falling at just the right moment, making me look helpless and pitiful. I'm not. I just don't know what to do. The top lawyer, Lawyer Wang, quickly stepped in to smooth things over. He adjusted his wire-rimmed glasses and switched to a gentle tone. Mrs. Zhao, I understand you're emotional right now and that's completely reasonable. But we have to look forward. We all regret what happened to Julian, but life goes on. Silas is your husband, the heir to the Zhao family, he can't have a criminal record. As he spoke, he pulled a checkbook from his briefcase. We truly understand your difficulties with the child. This is a small compensation. Do you think this amount shows our sincerity? He scribbled a few lines, filled out the check and pushed it toward me. There were so many zeros I didn't bother counting. Probably 5 million yuan. In their eyes, my son's life, my 3 years of waiting, my heart being torn to shreds right now, all of it had a clear price tag. Mrs. Zhao crossed her arms, speaking in a dismissive tone like she saw right through me. Theolin, drop the act. Isn't this what you wanted all along? Take the money, sign the paper, and we'll pretend this never happened. You'll still be the Zhao family's daughter-in-law. No one will treat you badly. Her tone was like she was dismissing a beggar at the door. I looked at the check, then lifted my head to meet the gazes of the three of them, arrogant Mrs. Zhao, shrewd Lawyer Wang, and their assistant. They all wore the same expression. Certainty. Certain that money could fix everything. Certain that I'd finally give in. I reached out, my fingertips brushing the cold surface of the check. Then, right in front of them, I used 2 fingers to push it back. The movement was gentle, but it hit them like a loud slap. Mrs. Zhao, I think you've really misunderstood, I said. My voice no longer trembled, it held a dead, quiet calm. This isn't about money. It was my first small test, a complete shattering of their arrogance that money could smooth over anything. Mrs. Zhao's face darkened completely. Theolin, don't be ungrateful. Is 5 million still not enough for you? A woman who can't even give birth to a son. You should thank your ancestors for letting you marry into the Zhao family. And now you dare to bargain with me? Her cruel words were like poisoned shards of ice, slamming into me. What do you think you are? If it weren't for Julian being Silas's child, you wouldn't even have the right to step through our door. Now you're using the kid as a bargaining chip. You're greedy and disgusting. Lawyer Wang also dropped his fake kindness. Miss Theolin, I advise you to think carefully, he said. You won't be able to bear the consequences of refusing a kind offer. If Silas gets a criminal record, it'll have a huge impact on him and on Zhao Group. Can you take that responsibility? The conflict escalated. Their insults, their threats, this was exactly what I wanted. Amid their increasingly fierce accusations, I calmly took out my phone, unlocked it and opened the photo album. Then I picked up the data cable from the table, plugged one end into my phone, and the other into the port of the large LCD screen in the mediation room. My movements were slow and steady, each step clear and deliberate. Mrs. Xiao and Lawyer Wang froze, confused about what I was doing. "Thealin, what trick are you playing now?" I ignored her, just pressing the screen mirroring button. In the next second, my phone screen was projected in full onto the huge wall display. In the center of the screen was a screenshot of a text message, sent from the donor's assistant. Every word was huge and clear, like a knife carved into everyone's retinas. Ms. Luna Su's surgery was a complete success. Mr. Xiao paid double the fee and added an extra 1 million yuan for nutrition. Thank you again for your understanding and cooperation. The mediation room fell completely silent. The non-stop accusations died abruptly. It was like all the air had been sucked out of the room. I watched Mrs. Xiao's expression shift from extreme arrogance to shock in a second, then to disbelief and finally to towering rage. The shrewd calculation on Lawyer Wang's face also collapsed instantly, leaving only astonishment and panic. This sharp blade of irrefutable evidence had stabbed precisely where they least expected it. I'd successfully shifted the core of the conflict from, "I'm framing my husband for money," to, "Who did my husband really steal the money for?" I'd dragged Luna Su, the first love they'd hidden in the shadows, into the light in the most brutal public way possible. I looked at their faces twisted with emotion and spoke softly as if asking them and as if asking myself, "You see? Turns out my son's life isn't even worth a single strand of her hair." Silas was released on bail. The Xiao family's influence was enough to temporarily smooth over a family dispute. When he rushed home, I was packing Julian's things. The hospital had issued a second critical condition notice. I planned to transfer him to a private hospice, so he could pass with dignity. The door was kicked open with a loud crash. Silas, like an enraged beast with bloodshot eyes, charged at me. "Thealin, have you lost your mind? What do you want? You told my mom about this, now everyone knows. Are you happy?" His accusations held not a single trace of concern for Julian, only fury that his first love Luna had gotten into trouble. "Go apologize to Luna. No. Tell everyone that text was fake. That you were jealous of her and made up this lie." I stopped what I was doing and looked at him quietly. How ridiculous. Even now, the first thing he thought of was protecting Luna's innocence. When I said nothing, he grew more frantic, reaching out to grab my phone. "Give me the phone. I'm deleting the evidence." I didn't resist letting him grab for it. Just as his hand was about to touch the phone, I lifted my head and glanced at the unassuming humidifier in the corner of the living room. On top of it was a tiny blinking red light. I'd been ready for this. From the moment I decided to call the police, I knew he'd come back, threaten me, destroy evidence. This was the villain's last struggle, and the second gift I'd prepared for him. "Silas Xiao," I said, my voice eerily calm. "You don't need to grab it." He paused, eyeing me suspiciously. I didn't argue with him, there was no point. I just turned, took 2 documents from the drawer and threw them onto the coffee table in front of him. One was a divorce agreement with my signature already on it. The other was a copy of a property division lawsuit. "You." He stared at the papers, his pupils shrinking sharply. I pointed at the lawsuit. "You don't need to bother deleting things from my phone. Because I have something more complete here." I opened the attachment to the lawsuit. It was a bank statement dozens of pages long. 5 years ago, you bought Luna an apartment in the city center, full price, 8.6 million yuan. 4 years ago, when she went to Paris for a fashion show, you spent 1.2 million yuan on your secondary credit card in 3 days. 3 years ago, when she started her personal studio, you anonymously invested 5 million yuan. Last year for her birthday, you gave her that pink Porsche, 1.73 million yuan. Every line I read made Silas's face paler. These records, I'd collected and organized them bit by bit over 3 years, during the countless sleepless nights by Julian's hospital bed. I once thought they were just proof of his unfinished feelings, evidence of my unhappy marriage. Now they were my weapons of revenge. "Silas Xiao, this is all the property you transferred to Luna after we got married. Total 32.74 million yuan. Every transaction is documented. According to marriage law, I'm entitled to recover half of that, which is 16.37 million yuan. I looked at his ashen face and told him word by word, I'm not just suing you for theft. I'm also suing you for illegally transferring marital joint property. I want a divorce and I want you to leave this marriage with nothing. He trembled all over, pointing at me, unable to speak for a long time. You knew about this all along? You've been plotting against me. I laughed. It was the first genuine laugh I'd had in days, cold and bitter. Plotting? Silas Xiao, do you even deserve that? I stood up, walked over to him and looked down at the man I'd loved for 10 years. For the moment you chose to steal our son's life-saving money, my life was already reborn. I'm no longer your wife, no longer the Xiao family's daughter-in-law. In my world there are only two things left. Saving my son and destroying all of you. The Xiao family's power was like an invisible net, crushing all my efforts to nothing. My police report was dismissed as a family dispute. No case filed. My divorce lawsuit was indefinitely delayed by the court, citing evidence requiring further verification. Time in the face of the Xiao family's power became meaningless. But for Julian, every second was torture. His condition worsened with each passing day as we waited. Cancer cells mercilessly ate away at his tiny body. The doctor pulled me aside, gently suggesting I consider stopping treatment, to spare him more pain. I knelt in his office, begging for just a little more time. I couldn't give up. Clutching my last shred of hope, I made a decision. I sold everything I owned, my premarital apartment, the jewelry my mother had left me, every penny of my savings. I scraped together nearly 1 million yuan and took Julian to one of the country's top private genetic testing centers. I wanted to find alternative therapies or any new treatment plan. Even if there was only a 1 in 10,000 chance, I had to try. This was my ultimate sacrifice, the last drop of blood I could give as a mother. At the same time, I saw in financial news that Xiao Group had Godao announced a strategic partnership with Switzerland's top rehabilitation center, investing heavily to bring in full sets of equipment and expert teams. In the news photo, Silas Xiao and Luna Su stood side by side, smiling brightly. The report said Mr. Xiao had spared no expense to make this collaboration happen, all to ensure a dear friend received the best post-surgery care. My son was fighting for his life in the ICU. His father was paving a glittering path to health for another woman. This contrast of suffering made even breathing feel painful. A week later, the testing center called, asking me to pick up the report. I walked into that cold building with the devotion of a pilgrim. That thin stack of paper was Julian's and my last lifeline. I sat in an empty corridor, my hands trembling as I opened the envelope. On the first page I saw a term, paternal hereditary defect. The report stated that Julian's leukemia was no accident. It was an extremely rare genetic defect inherited from his paternal line, the Xiao family's bloodline. My mind went blank. So it wasn't a coincidence. It was them. The Xiao family. The half of Julian's blood that flowed from their veins had doomed him to this suffering from the start. I flipped further, my fingertips ice cold. Then I saw the words that would drag me straight to hell. Written in the calm, objective language of academia. Research indicates that within families carrying this genetic defect, close blood relatives, due to the unique similarity of their gene sequences, may exhibit a super donor phenomenon during hematopoietic stem cell matching. That is, in HLA typing tests conducted with non-blood relatives, the results may show a perfect full match. My heart stopped beating. A roar exploded in my head as if a bomb had detonated inside. I knew every word individually, but together, they formed an incomprehensible fantasy. Close blood relatives. In the eyes of non-blood relatives. A perfect full match. An absurd yet horribly plausible thought slithered into my mind like a venomous snake. I frantically flipped to the last page of the report, where a donor matching model, based on Julian's gene sequence, was outlined. In black and white, a conclusion stared back at me. In theory, female direct or collateral relatives sharing the same paternal bloodline as the patient will be the most ideal bone marrow donors. Crush. The last pillar in my world collapsed completely. So Luna Su's perfect match with Julian had never been a 1 in a million stroke of luck. It was a dirty, ugly secret written into their bloodline from the very beginning. 5. She wasn't Silas's first love. She was Silas's father's illegitimate daughter. She was Silas's half-sister. She was Julian's biological aunt. The only antidote, the only chance at life had been fed by this sinful family to their own bastard child, cutting off my son's last hope for good. I held that report sitting on the cold floor, my vision turning red. Hope was crushed to dust. Nothing remained but endless, fated despair. That genetic report was like a death sentence, pinning me to the cold hospital corridor. I didn't know how long I sat there. Time lost its meaning. Space to around me. Nurses walked back and forth, their footsteps, their voices, all sounded like they were coming from a distant world. In my world, only those lines of black text remained, searing my retinas over and over. Close blood relatives. Perfect match. Half-sister. Turns out, the despair I'd felt before wasn't the bottom. Beneath the bottom there was hell. The sky went from pitch black to pale gray, then to full daylight. In one night I seemed to cry all the tears I'd ever have. But when the sun's light hit my face, I didn't break down. I didn't scream. I just stood up slowly. The tears on my face had dried. In their place was a determination so empty, it bordered on numbness. There is no greater sorrow than a broken heart. When a person can no longer even feel despair, they have nothing left to fear. I walked into the ICU, staring through the thick glass at Julian, who lay asleep. My child. My baby. Mom can't extend your life anymore. But Mom can avenge you. When I got home, the first thing I did was go to a 24-hour print shop downstairs. I made 20 copies of that genetic report. No name, no trace left behind. I pulled out the list I'd compiled earlier, names of all the Shao family's business rivals, and several media outlets known for their sharp coverage of wealthy family scandals. Wearing a hat and mask like a ghost, I wandered through different parts of the city, dropping brown envelopes into mailboxes one by one. After finishing, I sat down at my computer. I opened my email and composed a new message. The recipient was a pioneering laboratory in the US, famous for researching rare genetic therapies. I'd stumbled upon it while looking up information for Julian. In the email, I attached Julian's complete medical records and that devastating genetic report. I made no requests, asked for no help. I simply shared this rare case as a desperate mother, offering it as research material. This might be Julian's last legacy in this world. This was my step back. I no longer sought justice from this unjust world. Instead, I chose to turn all my despair into ultimate weapons of mutual destruction. What I wanted was no longer a legal trial. What I wanted was the complete destruction of the entire Shao Empire. After doing all this, I deleted all sent records and browsing history. My phone vibrated wildly on the table, the screen flashing Lawyer Wong. I didn't answer. I knew Silas and the Shao family had no idea about any of this. They probably still thought I was just a scorned woman throwing a fit, trying to get more money. They still used their arrogant, self-righteous logic to guess my motives. They had no idea. A storm powerful enough to uproot them entirely was already brewing. Yet what triggered all this was neither money nor resentment. It was my dead love, the love they'd strangled with their own hands. The letters I'd sent were like precisely timed bombs. Overnight, they blew up the moat surrounding the Shao family's century-old legacy. The storm hit harder than I'd imagined. Wealthy family secret. Is the Shao heir's illness a curse of hereditary genes? Shocking scandal. Shao Group President Shao Zhenhua allegedly has an illegitimate daughter. His son Silas Shao, madly in love, engages in incest with his half-sister. Trading a nephew's life for a sister's survival? The truth behind the bone marrow transplant is horrifying. Each headline was more shocking than the last. The internet exploded. Shao Group stock plummeted to its daily limit as soon as the market opened, wiping out billions in value. Countless calls flooded the group's PR department. Partners sent letters demanding explanations one after another. A business empire teetered on the brink of collapse in the blink of an eye. As for me, I simply stayed quietly by Julian's bed, wiping his body, watching the faint, fluctuating lines on the monitor. None of this had anything to do with me. Yet at the same time, it had everything to do with me. Finally, the Shao family called. It was Mrs. Shao. Her voice no longer held its usual arrogance. Only repressed madness and exhaustion. Lin, you did this. Didn't you? I said nothing. I'm talking to you. You poisonous woman. Do you want to destroy the Shao family? Do you want to ruin Silas? The one who ruined him isn't me. I finally spoke, my voice calm and steady. You. She was left speechless, then began spouting insults without restraint. Lin, let me tell you, don't be so proud. Luna's in trouble. She's having severe post-transplant rejection. The doctors say she needs a second transplant. Are you happy now? You'll get nothing out of killing her. I listened to her hysterical screams on the other end of the line, yet felt no ripple of emotion in my heart. Luna Sue was going to die. The news didn't even make my heart beat faster. How tragic. I hung up the phone. Not long after, a strange number called. It was Silas Shao. Thea. It's me. His voice was hoarse, fragile, filled with belated regret. Thea, I was wrong. I was really wrong. I shouldn't have taken Julian's money, I shouldn't have. I'm a bastard, I'm not human. He began rambling in his confession. Come back, okay? Let's be a family again. We'll find a way to save Julian together. I'll give him my bone marrow, I'll give him everything. How ridiculous. Only now did he remember he was Julian's father too. Silas Shao, your sister's having rejection and she needs a second transplant, right? I cut off his performance. He froze. How? How did you know? Are you now thinking if only I'd keep quiet, if only this storm would pass, you could do the same trick again? Find another lucky child from some distant relative to save your dear sister. My words were like a scalpel, cutting open the darkest corner of his heart with precision. On the other end of the line there was a long dead silence. No, that's not it. Thea, let me explain. No need. I didn't want to listen anymore. He began calling and texting me like a madman. Thea, please just see me once. I know I was wrong. Give me a chance to make it right. Julian's my son too, I love him. Just come back, I'll do anything. I'll get on my knees and beg you. He even rushed to the hospital, only to be stopped by the bodyguards I'd hired in advance, right downstairs. From the window upstairs, I watched him scream and kneel like a madman below, then get dragged away by security guards. 7. Utterly disgraced. This was the man I'd once loved. A few days later, my new legal team officially sent him the first lawyer's letter. The content was simple. Regarding Miss Thea Lin's divorce and property division lawsuit, our side refuses all forms of out-of-court settlement. Furthermore, regarding the ongoing harassment of our client, Miss Thea Lin, by Mr. Silas Shao and his family, we have collected evidence and reserve the right to pursue further legal action. I didn't show up. From start to finish, I never saw him again. My revenge didn't require tears or confrontations. I only needed to watch him, watch all of them wailing and struggling in the karmic fire they'd lit themselves, until they turned to ashes. This was my magnificent turnaround. While I dragged the Shao family into the whirlpool of public opinion and watched them fall apart with cold eyes, an email quietly landed in my inbox. The sender was the American genetic laboratory I'd had no hope for. Dear Miss Thea Lin, we have received the medical records of your son Julian. Our laboratory's team of experts has expressed great interest in this rare paternal hereditary defect gene sequence. After a preliminary assessment, we believe Julian's condition fully meets the enrollment criteria for an experimental gene therapy clinical trial we are conducting, codenamed NOAA. If you agree, the laboratory is willing to cover all treatment costs and invite you and your son to the United States to join this treatment program. This may be a difficult voyage, but on the other side, there may be a new continent. I stared at the email, reading it word by word 3 times. For the first time in a long while, my heart beat violently. It was the feeling of being struck hard by something called hope. I didn't cry. I just walked to the window and looked up at the sky. Turns out the sky wasn't always gray. I immediately asked my legal team to handle all the procedures for going abroad as quickly as possible. The day before I was set to leave, my lawyer met with Silas Shao. I didn't go. I only asked the lawyer to record the conversation. Later I listened to that recording. Where's Thea Lin? I want to see Thea Lin. Tell her to come talk to me in person. It was Silas's voice, frenzied and desperate. Mr. Xiao, Miss Thea Lin does not wish to see you. She has entrusted me to convey her final decision, my lawyer said, calm and professional. What decision? What more does she want? The Xiao family is already falling apart because of her. Luna Su. Luna's dying. What more does she want? Miss Thea Lin has decided to completely reject all forms of reconciliation and compounding. That's impossible. She loved me. She loved me for 10 years. She can't treat me like this. Mr. Xiao, perhaps you never truly understood your wife. She asked me to pass on a message to you. The lawyer paused. She said, the more she once loved you, the more she now wants you to have nothing left. On the recording, there was a loud crash as if something had been smashed, followed by Silas's broken sobs. The media soon got wind of the news too. Extremes of fortune. Thea Lin and her son secure free treatment at top U.S. laboratory, set to embark on a new life. The Xiao family remains trapped in mud. Luna Su on the brink of death with no hope of survival. Karma is a wheel. Once scorned heiress stages a miraculous comeback, while the unfaithful man's desperate pleas for forgiveness end in failure. The scales of public opinion tipped completely in my favor. I became an independent, clear-minded, powerful goddess of revenge. At the airport in the VIP lounge, Julian lay on a specially made mobile hospital bed, sleeping quietly. I looked out the window at the plane about to take off, my heart perfectly calm. From today onward I was no longer someone's wife, someone's daughter-in-law. I was just Thea Lin, Julian's mother. From this moment on I would write my own life script. Before boarding through the huge floor-to-ceiling window, I seemed to catch a glimpse of a familiar figure. It was Silas Xiao. He stood beyond the barrier, gaunt and haggard, like a statue of despair, staring at us from a distance. I didn't pause, didn't look back. I pushed Julian's hospital bed, step by step, toward the boarding tunnel that led to a new life. Behind me came the sound of his silent, shattered scream. That ticket to the other side wasn't just for medical treatment. It was the cleanest break I could make from my past. A year later. California, USA. Afternoon sunlight streamed through the floor-to-ceiling windows, falling on Julian's face. His hair had grown back dark and soft and his cheeks were flushed with health. He knelt on the carpet, focused on assembling a complex Lego set. The results of the experimental treatment were beyond anyone's expectations. The doctor said there was an excellent chance he'd grow up like any other normal child. As for me, I was no longer the housewife who'd spent her days in tears just a year before. I'd enrolled in auditing courses at a university, focusing on genetic medicine and biopharmaceuticals. My life after being destroyed was finally being rebuilt, truly rebuilt. Luna Su was dead. A month earlier she'd quietly passed away in Switzerland's most expensive rehabilitation center, tormented by endless rejection reactions and complications. I'd seen the news in a small corner of a financial app's push notifications. Xiao Group's future uncertain. Xiao family heiress Luna Su passes away. I glanced at it, then swiped past. It felt like reading a piece of social news that had nothing to do with me. I thought I'd never have any contact with the Xiao family again. Until the day my doorbell rang. Through the security camera I saw a face that was both familiar and strange. Miss Xiao. She looked at least 10 years older than she had a year before. Her hair was streaked with gray, she wore a plain black outfit, and her face carried a deliberately crafted mix of sorrow and tenderness. She probably thought time could erase everything. She probably thought her grief over losing her daughter would earn her a little sympathy. She pressed the doorbell again. Thea, open up. It's Mom, she said. I stared at that fake face on the screen, feeling a wave of disgust. I know you're home, she continued. Thea, Mom came to see you and Julian. Is Julian doing better? Grandma misses him. She started playing the family card. Let's let the past stay in the past. Luna's gone now, when will this cycle of revenge end? Silas. He's had a terrible year. He knows he was wrong. Just forgive him. The Xiao family can't lose Julian, our only grandson. Come back. Everything the Xiao family has will be Julian's someday. Her words were still rooted in that arrogant, condescending logic, thinking a blank check for inheritance rights would make me grateful enough to return. She'd followed her script to find me, trying to use family ties and her grandson as leverage. Unfortunately, I'd long since stepped out of her script. I picked up the phone, but instead of opening the door, I dialed the community security center directly. Hello, there's an unfamiliar woman harassing me at my door. Please send someone to handle it. 5 minutes later, 2 tall security guards appeared behind Mrs. Xiao. Ma'am, please leave immediately. Otherwise, we'll call the police on charges of trespassing, they said. The tenderness on Mrs. Xiao's face froze instantly, replaced by shock and humiliation. Villain. How dare you? I'm your mother-in-law. I'm Julian's grandmother, she screamed at the door. I ignored her. The guards escorted her away. The next day, my lawyer sent her an application for a restraining order. Any further harassment will result in legal action. Mrs. Xiao's loving mother act had clearly deceived some distant relatives of the Xiao family back in China. 9. They began attacking me on social media, condemning me fiercely. So cold-hearted. Her elder came all the way to apologize, and she still treated her like this. Truly, the heart of a woman is the most poisonous. She ruined her husband's family for money, and now she won't even let the child's own grandmother see him. This woman is terrifying. Poor Xiao family, they really let a wolf into their home. Overnight, I was isolated. My lawyer asked if I wanted to issue a statement to clarify. I shook my head. No need. How could the buzzing of flies affect an eagle soaring in the sky? I turned off my phone and went back to reading my book. Their world, their moral blackmail, their accusations, what did any of it have to do with me? The Xiao family's situation in China was even worse than I'd imagined. They lost case after case in court, their assets were frozen, and partners terminated contracts one after another. A towering tree, its roots eaten away by rot, was crashing down. Desperate dogs would jump over walls. I'd expected they'd make a final struggle, but I never thought they'd stoop to such low tactics. My lawyer called me in the middle of the night with an urgent message. Thea Lin, something's happened. Back in China, Xiao Zhenhua used some underhanded methods to forge a series of documents. My heart sank. What kind of documents? He forged a psychiatric evaluation report claiming you have severe postpartum depression and violent tendencies. At the same time, he bribed people to give false testimonies, accusing you of abusing Julian. What's his goal? He's already filed a lawsuit in the court here, demanding that your custody rights be revoked. He wants Julian's custody transferred to him, the only sane direct relative, his grandfather. It was a desperate last move to strike at the root. Their final, most malicious trap, trying to take Julian away from me in the name of justice. My lawyer's tone was grave. This is tricky. The other side is well prepared, and they've used some dark connections we don't fully understand. Even if we win the case, it'll do enormous damage to your reputation and Julian's. After listening, I remained surprisingly calm. Don't worry, Lawyer Wang, I said. I walked to my study, opened a locked drawer, and took out a folder. I've been expecting this day. I have something else. This was something I'd been working on ever since I came to the US. I'd asked my legal team to contact America's most authoritative international child protection organization, and in Julian's name, we'd established a special file for his health and growth. It contained all of Julian's treatment data from the past year, psychological evaluation reports, photos of his progress, and videos of our daily life together. Every document was notarized by a third-party organization with legal standing. If they want to go to court, I'll meet them in court. But I'll choose the battlefield. I proactively submitted this file to the court handling the case. Furthermore, I authorized my lawyer to invite representatives from the International Child Protection Organization and several influential international media outlets to attend this cross-border custody battle as observers. On the day of the trial, I didn't go. But footage of the hearings spread across the world through the media. The lawyer Xiao Zhenhua had hired stood in court, passionately presenting the forged evidence. My psychiatric report, my violent tendencies, the witness testimonies of my abuse of my son. Just as they looked triumphant, convinced they'd won, my lawyer calmly submitted the thick growth file, endorsed by international authorities, and projected it onto the court's large screen. Julian's bright smile. Videos of me reading to him by his bed. Doctors' evaluations highly praising his physical and mental health. professional testimonies from observers at the International Child Protection Organization. The evidence was overwhelming. The documents Xiao Zhenhua had forged became a ridiculous joke in the face of this truth. The judge ruled on the spot that Xiao Zhenhua's side had engaged in evidence forgery and malicious litigation, dismissing all their claims. He also announced that a criminal investigation would be launched into Xiao Zhenhua's act of forging documents. The truth came to light. This final straw that broke the Xiao family was heavier than anyone had imagined. The incident quickly escalated, sparking widespread international attention to cross-border abuse of judicial procedures. Back in China, under immense public pressure, the investigation into the Xiao family was fully expanded. The protective umbrella behind them was completely torn open and removed. The relatives who'd accused me of being cold-hearted online fell silent collectively in the face of irrefutable evidence. Public opinion underwent a complete reversal. The final net I'd laid had trapped all their crimes and struggles firmly within it. There was no escape left. 5 years later. Geneva World Summit on Genetic Science. I stood on the main stage, behind me a massive screen displaying the research results of the NOAA Phase 2 project I led. We believe that through targeted editing and repair of paternally inherited defective genes, countless children like Julian will in the future be spared the pain of being born with a fated suffering. Below, top experts and scholars from around the world erupted into thunderous applause. In these 5 years, my life had undergone an earth-shattering transformation. 10 Thanks to my deep involvement in Julian's treatment and subsequent studies, I'd gone from an auditing student to a core researcher in a laboratory, and now to a respected expert in this field. I'd achieved the most complete turnaround through my own experience. As for the Xiao family, they'd finally met their end. After losing the cross-border lawsuit, the Xiao family's business empire and its protective umbrella in China were uprooted completely, leading to total bankruptcy. Xiao Zhenhua and Silas Xiao were sentenced to long prison terms on multiple charges: forging official documents, malicious litigation, commercial bribery, and illegal transfer of assets. They would spend the rest of their lives behind bars. I'd learned of this news in a passing mention in an email from my lawyer. After reading it, I simply replied with 2 calm words: received. Hatred had long since faded. When I'd gained a broader world, those people and things that once made me suffer beyond endurance were no more than a tiny black dot on the horizon. After the conference, I politely declined the dinner invitation and returned to the hotel early. Pushing open the door, a bright, handsome teenager rushed over and gave me a big hug. "Mom, you were so cool today." It was Julian. He was 14 now, half a head taller than me, healthy, cheerful, and the star quarterback of his school's football team. His illness had been declared clinically cured 3 years earlier. He was proud of me. And when I looked at him, I saw the light of the entire world. With the first donation from the NOAA Foundation I'd established, I'd funded 100 children suffering from rare diseases, just like Julian once had. I'd turned my personal suffering into a faint light that could illuminate others. This perhaps was something far more meaningful than revenge itself. That evening, Julian and I dined at the hotel's open-air restaurant. The night view of Lake Geneva was as beautiful as a painting. Julian sliced his steak while asking me curiously, "Mom, I heard from Uncle Wang that Silas Xiao got seriously ill in prison a while ago. His application for medical parole was rejected." My hand paused for a moment, then returned to its natural motion. "Is that so?" "Yeah. Do you think he's sorry?" I looked into Julian's clear eyes, thought for a moment, then smiled. "Does it matter if he's sorry?" Julian smiled too. "No, it doesn't." Oh, it didn't matter. I raised my glass and clinked it gently against his. The clear liquid in the glass reflected my face, confident and composed. I no longer needed to find the thrill of victory in anyone's confession, because I had long since become the winner of my own life. This was what light and rebirth felt like. The end.